No, the month of July had not gone well for Michigan football when it comes to recruiting, but the tables have turned, the winds have changed. All of it has come to a much different, the course has been changed. I don't know how to say it. But nonetheless, 2 top 100 commitments for Michigan on Monday. Let's talk some Michigan football recruiting on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I hope you enjoyed my week off. However, it wasn't spent doing anything fun. Was a bit under the weather from the 4th of July onward. But we are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group, and one commitment that was long anticipated and another that was shortly anticipated both came to fruition. Of course, in the interim of the last week, Michigan's lost out on a couple people, and I think that that's been obviously something that Michigan fans have been wringing their hands over, because when you start losing a Maxwell Roy to Ohio State, you lose Hardy Watts. That was, I think, this time last week. Hardy Watts goes to Wisconsin. I know there's others that I'm missing that just ended up kind of falling through the grasp, the fingertips of Michigan. Shamari Earls to Georgia. It's good to get some big wins, and big wins they did get. You got Andrew Olesh, the tight end, who seemed to be kind of waffling. We always talk about the Laquan Treadwell. Mel. Now I just suddenly cannot speak. Laquan Treadwell recruitment, and how it just seemed like Michigan led for the longest time and he never committed, and it felt like what? And it kind of felt like, even though Michigan didn't have a super long lead for Andrew Olesh, it did feel kind of like he's looking for something else, right? He went and visited Alabama. He went and visited Florida. Just felt like he was looking for a reason not to go to Michigan, and ultimately today he chooses for Michigan. And then obviously Ivan Taylor, the safety, who, according to some services, is Michigan's top-rated commitment now overall. And that certainly takes the sting out of losing JaDon Blair to Notre Dame, because they steal one from Notre Dame. They're trying to pretend like it's not a big deal. If you look at their fans and everything on social media, they're trying to say this is not, it's not a big deal, right? Like, we dominate Michigan. It's funny, like, all of these different programs have fans that seem to really dominate recruiting, and then when it comes to the actual seasons, it's kind of like, I don't know that you're dominating much of anything. So, yes, apparently I'm trying to draw ire from Notre Dame fans today. But as I wear my Yahweh shirt, no less. But it's a huge step in the right direction for Michigan, especially because I think coming out of Victor's weekend, you didn't necessarily see the type of movement that you were hoping to see here. So let's look at the commitment list now. Michigan did move all the way up from 22 on the 24/7 Sports team rankings up to 11 today. So finally, kind of about where I think you'll see Michigan finish at or around the top 10 once everything is said and done. But now you've got the top 2 guys that you have committed in your class, according to 24/7 Sports proprietary rankings, are both your safeties, just 2 spots apart. The number 2 and number 3 safeties. Ivan Taylor at number 1, Kanwan Winston at number 2. Nate Marshall is, who was not too long ago the top pledge, is number 3. Then Andrew Olesh at number 4. And then these are all guys that Michigan's gotten since the beginning of June, which except, well, not Marshall. Marshall committed during spring ball, but Jalen Williams, there. You've got Jacob Washington, which we can talk a little bit about the on-3 recruiting rankings changes as well. Julius Holly, another recent commitment. Donovan Johnson, Jasper Parker, who earned a 4th star, went from unrated to a 4-star. He's actually rated higher than Donovan Johnson on the on 3 rankings. So things have kind of changed in a hurry. Let's start by talking Olesh a little bit. Olesh is the number 67 player in the country, according to On3. When you look at 24/7 Sports, I hate these little ads they throw up. Number 84 in the country. So the industry ranking is kind of dragged down by the fact that even though he's a 4-star, he is unranked, or sorry, not given he's unranked. A 4-star that's unranked according to Rivals. That drags him all the way down to where you see him in the composite. He's 93 in the On3 industry ranking. And if we were to look at his 24/7 Sports composite, he's 118th overall. So Rivals really dragging him down. But Olesh is ranked 84th according to 24/7 Sports. He's the highest on On3 at number 67, and he's 106th according to ESPN. He's someone that you would expect to go to Penn State, being a Pennsylvania native. So consider this like the end to the Theo Johnson trade, right? Because Theo Johnson, who came from Windsor, Ontario, ends up going to Penn State. Then Michigan goes and gets someone that you would think would be someone that would go to Penn State coming to Michigan. 6'5", 215, a heck of an offer list. Let's just double check that real quick as well. Like I mentioned, all these teams before: Michigan, Penn State, Alabama, Florida. Florida State was in there as well. He's got offers from Auburn, Rutgers doesn't really faze me that much. Texas A&M, Miami, Tennessee, some really good schools there. No Ohio State, but you know what? Better than anyone from Ohio State, I think, has gotten. If I know they just got a tight end commitment, that's pretty good, but still. So pretty big win for Michigan to be able to get a guy like him. Pairs well with Eli Owens, who's been a vocal recruiter for Michigan, but is a 3-star tight end. Now you got a guy that you hope can kind of finish in this type of place, considering it seems like every now and again Michigan gets that guy. Like Brady Prescorn was ranked, I think, like 40th or something at the time of his commitment, and he ends up being in the hundreds by the time that everything is said and done. So it'd be nice to see a guy kind of finish where he started or even climb up the ranks. But that's a huge win for Michigan. And I can certainly tell you Penn State thought for the longest time they were getting him. I mean, I even got a message from Zach Sako from Locked On Nittany Lions being like, please tell me why suddenly it looks like Michigan fans think that they're going to get Andrew Olesh and Kanewah Winston. Well, 2 for 2. Michigan got both of them. So there you go. We're going to talk about Ivan Taylor here in just a moment and kind of get into that. And then we'll kind of get at the outlook of the class, kind of where things go from here, all that kind of stuff. We'll get to that in just a few moments. Before we do, listen, it's summertime. There's lots of events coming around. I know I'm going to see Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham on August 1st, but I really want to go the next day. If I can do 2 concerts in 2 days, I will. And to see Sammy Hagar with Joe Satriani, Michael Anthony, and Jason Bonham. I mean, I was talking to my mom about it yesterday. I'm like, we've got to go to this. That sounds amazing. I'm all Van Hagar. But when I look at the main ticket distributor, they're all resale tickets and they're through the roof. So I checked Gametime, and suddenly it's like, okay, I could do this without it having a massive effect on my pocketbook, like if I went through the other thing. So Gametime, here's the thing. You can go to sports as well. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB's tickets. So I highly recommend that you check out any event. We did the Lions playoffs. I've sat there and looked at any kind of event that I've thought about going to. If it's not a pre-sale, like I did with Brandon Lake, then chances are you're best off getting your tickets through Gametime. I know Maverick City Music is coming in, I think, November, and I'll be looking on Gametime for that. The greatest part for me is the seat views. You know exactly what you're going to be looking at. It is a game changer because you know they're going to have no obstructions. You know you're going to like your seats. So take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets and concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Again, you can, terms apply. So create the account, Redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. I never got his name. As a sweaty, disgusting mess. I walked over to pick up some food from Rail Yard, because it's just as easy for me as ordering DoorDash, and being under the weather as I was. That was a really good option for me, and I ran into a podcast watcher. So thanks for watching, but I never got your name. Also, shout out to Adam, who runs Salad Fever, who is also a podcast, I think, listener. I don't know if he was a watcher or not. So shout out to both of you here in the Fenton, Michigan. So very excited to have both of you. All right, so I think just as big, and in a way, Andrew Olesh's commitment got overshadowed by Ivan Taylor. Ivan Taylor, who committed about 45 minutes prior, who comes aboard from Notre Dame. It was I don't want to say long time Notre Dame commitment, but I mean, December 2023, ends up flipping over, son of Ike Taylor, the 2-time Super Bowl winner. He ruins the picture that was kind of circulating for a while with Jerome Bettis and his kid. I don't know who the other person was with their kid. It's a cool picture. Michigan's long kind of had that, right? You got you got Micah Pollard, and he's the son of Marcus Pollard. You had Chris Jenkins, who's not with the program anymore, who's the son of Chris Jenkins. There's a lot of these NFL legacies that have come to play at Michigan. So it's cool to see Sharon at least kind of starting that out on his own. So that's pretty cool. But nonetheless, let's look at Ivan Taylor and his rankings. He's highest rated by 24/7 Sports and ESPN, which both have him as the number 41 player in the country. The On3 is the most bearish on him. He's 132 in the country there, but the On3 industry ranking has him at number 58 overall. Rivals has him at 102. So that's where he's at as far as that's concerned. But comes out of Florida, Winter Garden, right there by Disney World. But Sarah and I visited Winter Park, so I wish we would have gone to Winter Garden just so I could have said, like, hey, I went there too. Anyway, it's huge anytime you can flip someone from a program that's at least perceived in the way that Notre Dame is perceived. Do they have the results that go along with it? Not really, but they're perceived really well. So, and considering Michigan has lost out on a lot of guys, I just mentioned JaDon Blair, who just committed to Notre Dame. You look at Will Black, who for a while, and when you looked at the 2025 class, early on, it felt like Will Black was Michigan's to lose. Like I didn't come here and do our best guest recruiting list type things like I was doing, or I have been doing recently. And Will Black would have been on it, though. He was someone that I kind of had penciled in as someone that looked like a Michigan guy through and through, and ends up choosing Notre Dame. You look at a guy like Derek Meadows, who's probably going to end up picking Notre Dame. You're still in a battle with Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, who I feel like is in a Michigan-Notre Dame battle. So with all of that, I think it's interesting to see Michigan not only win one, but take one out of their class. Now, Ivan Taylor was the highest rated defensive player they had in their entire class. So that is huge. But also the fact that you compare him with Kanwa Winston, your safety position is so set, for years to come. It kind of reminds me of some of those safety classes that we had seen. Like this is the kind of thing that was kind of started when Chris Partridge was the safeties coach. And I feel like it's, do I have that right? No, he was the linebackers coach. Yeah, he got moved to safeties for a minute. Yes, I think. I might just be misremembering things there. Making up my own narratives, because I know I was thinking about writing that, and I just realized that I might be making something up. But nonetheless, Jay Harbaugh, who was the most recent safeties coach, had a really nice group. They still have a really nice group. And you, when you're able to continually build that out, it just feels really good, because now you know at least you've got the middle of the defense. You take the middle of the field away from opposing passing offenses. This is where Michigan's really kind of setting itself up really well. You got to get those corners, which is where they're really lacking at the moment. But this is where Michigan's doing a really, really good job, because if you take away the middle of the field and you can at least have some serviceable cornerbacks to go along with it, then you are setting yourself up well against the Ohio States, the USCs, and those teams that are going to be passing. Oregon, and such. So that is huge for Michigan to kind of set up for the future, to be able to bring in high-end talent. But also it's a huge perception win for Michigan to be able to not only steal one from Notre Dame, but to get someone as highly rated, right? This class is already, if we look at the 2025 class on 24/7 Sports, I got to go to the team rankings real quick just to tell you the score. Actually, I think I know it. It's 240 right now with 15 commits. So with a 91 on average. Now, I'll probably go down as they get a couple 3-stars. But if you look at, I still have to go to the team rankings. It's not going to let me do this in an easy way. So Michigan is at 240.72 right now with a 91.85 average ranking. But you look at 2024, Michigan was 16th in the country with only 21.9 points behind, right? 261 is where Michigan finished with 26 commits last year. You look at 2023, where Michigan ranked 17th, 245, only 5 points ahead with 25 commits. And when you look at these average star rankings, 11 4 stars, 14 3 stars in the 1 year. And then in 2024, it's 17 and 9. Where they're at right now, and again, they've got a lot of time here, so that for better or worse, 13 and 2. So they're just doing a much better job at getting higher end talent. Now, the great thing about some of these other classes, when I mentioned that they're not ranked as highly, is that Michigan's had a keen eye on finding guys that can be developed. Even though we don't know what like a DJ Waller is going to end up being now that he's at Kentucky, right? Like the fact that he became a coveted transfer as someone who was a 3-star that no one had heard of at the time of his commitment. I mean, that tells you that they're able to identify. So if you have that still, right, and you're seeing that a little bit with Jacob Washington, who was mostly a 3-star. He had 1 4-star ranking, I think, from Rivals. He ends up getting bumped up to a 4-star, according to On3. Jasper Parker went from a 3-star to a 4-star on On3. Sorry, he's getting choked up here as I think about it. All of these things are really working in Michigan's favor. And it's interesting to see, because now you look at some of them have fallen, right? Because it's actually, if you look at the On3 rankings, some of the guys like Avery Gash and Caden Strayhorn were former 4-stars that are now 3-stars. But you're seeing more guys kind of moving into that 4-star category, which is kind of unusual for Michigan. So that's good. But so where does Michigan stand now? What does this mean for the future? Where do we turn? What do we look at? Let's get into that here in just a moment. All right, so a couple more minutes here. We're going to keep this one a little bit shorter, I think, than normal, which, is fine. We're going to try to do a little bit better. Before the plan last week was to go all week and then got to be under the weather and still coming out of that. But Michigan is in excellent position when it comes to the future of the class. So Michigan moved up, like I mentioned earlier, and clicking is not working on links. That's fun. There we go. Rivals hasn't changed their rankings. They seem to be doing like an everyday thing maybe, but not like instantaneously. I wonder they're falling behind as a national outlet. Just, you can't do that. Everyone wants things right now, including me. But they were ranked number 22 on 24/7 Sports to open the day with 2 commitments. They're all the way up to number 11, which is, I think, where you expect them to be. They were 17th on 3. On 3's long been bullish on the Michigan class, and they're up to 11 there as well. Again, that's about where I would expect Michigan to probably finish. Now, there are other people out there that you're looking at and saying, like, okay, these are the types of guys that could commit, and some guys are obviously falling by the wayside. So I did my when Jerome put out the 2 eyeball emoji tweets yesterday, I did my who's next, knowing that it was probably the 2 that committed today, but also recognizing it could be anyone else. I think that the next one that you would think of is probably Philip Wright from Destrehan, Louisiana, the 3-star receiver. Obviously, that's going to drag things down a little bit there. But nonetheless, I think that he would probably he's committing on Saturday, I believe, is making his commitment. As far as the rest of the targets now, you're just kind of in, on their timeline as to when they're going to make their decisions here. Andrew Babalola is the guy I have my eye on as well. I know that there are some, I think EJ Holland isn't that high on Michigan's chances, while Steve Wiltfong kind of is. I feel like that's going to be a wait and see a little bit. I would, if I have him in the class, I think I had him at a 5 out of 10. I can look real fast. I would keep it there. And by 5 out of 10, that's a coin flip, right? So in the way that I do my best guess list, right? It's the way that the recruiting services might use a confidence level of 60. For me, that'd be like a confidence level of like 80 or 90, right? Like I'm not caring so much about getting dinged because we're doing this kind of more on the fly. And when I was at 24/7 Sports, I didn't keep track of all that stuff. Well, it did, but and I had a pretty good hit rate actually. I think I only missed one out of all the crystal balls I put in. But nonetheless, it's a 50% for me. 50% is more so a coin flip, right? It could be Stanford. It could be someone else. Who knows? But you're looking at that. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng could decide early, though he was just saying, he said to me, I know that other people were saying like, oh, he's not going to decide until like early signing day, maybe fall. But he said to me, we're looking at probably late summer, but maybe all the way to early signing day. That feels like a Michigan Notre Dame battle. Andrew Marsh, I would not expect him to push things up. He's the wide receiver out of Texas because he really wants to make his commitment in a date that's special to his departed father. So that would be those ones would be the ones that I'd have my eyes on. I think you could probably say Jordan Young's probably not likely for the class unless I don't know if he's a fit anymore. They've got 2 safeties. Maybe they take 3. That is certainly a possibility. And I'm just spitballing there. But him, I'm not so sure of. Jaden Sanders, the cornerback, who we haven't talked about, could ultimately be a guy that ends up in this class. And I'm not really sure his decision timeline. And just kind of going down the list, that's kind of it, right? Anyone else would be kind of a surprise. That's kind of the class. Now, they will certainly find other guys who could end up being in the class. That's kind of how these types of things work. Especially, on early signing day, every year, Michigan gets a guy that you weren't really looking at and ends up being like a 4-star. Last year it was Lugarda Depai. The year before, and he's not in school anymore, but it was Carmelo English. 2 years beforehand, it was someone, I can't remember offhand, in the 2020, it would have been the 2022 class. And come on, there we go. It's fun how sometimes this doesn't work. I mean, Zeke Berry was kind of late. He committed the day before the championship game. Keon Sabb committed on signing day. That's who I was thinking of, along with Darius Clements. So Michigan's managed to do really well at getting some of those guys late. So understand that the bulk of your class is probably made up of some of these guys who will make their decisions in the next month and a half-ish. And keep in mind, August is the end of August. The season's only a month and a half away at this point. So don't be surprised if it's kind of idle for a little while and then you see some names pop up. But as it stands right now, because I would imagine they're going to try to get up to like 24 and all of that, that would be where I would think it would go. But looking at my list right now, my best guess list, we've got most of these guys on the board, right? Carter Smith, Jasper Parker, Donovan Johnson, Jacob Washington. We fully expect Philip Wright and Andrew Marsh to commit. Andrew Olesh did commit. I got Andrew Babalola. You got Caden Strayhorn, Avery Gash. Then I missed on Hardy Watts, who seemed like he was about to commit. Then you've got Bobby Kanka, Nate Marshall, Jalen Williams. They all committed. Marco Jones didn't commit. He ended up going to Texas A&M. Julius Holly committed. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, we're going to be, that's one of the ones we're waiting on. Kamar Archie actually went to Rutgers. I said that was kind of a danger. I had him at a 5 out of 10 because Michigan slow jammed the news with him for a little bit. Chase Taylor, Kainwa Winston, both committed. JaDon Blair ended up going to Notre Dame. Ivan Taylor committed. Shamari Earls went to Georgia. And then I've got Alex Graham flipping from Colorado with a coin flip there. So that's kind of what you're looking at. Still, they've got some more work to do to fill out the class. They need another edge rusher. They need, I think that they really need to get a couple linebackers. It looks like they've got their wide receiver core at least figured out who they're going after. A couple offensive linemen and cornerbacks. So those are the needs, and that's where they kind of stand at the moment. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back on Tuesday to talk a bunch of different stuff, not one particular thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.